You know, 2 a.m. is a haunting hour. It's when the world sleeps, but her thoughts come alive. Not the ones she tells her friends about, the ones she buries deep, the ones about you. At 2 a.m., when the world quiets down and the distractions fade away, the absence becomes a living, breathing entity in her room. It doesn't knock. It doesn't announce itself. It just seeps into the cracks of her thoughts, into the stillness of her breath, into the cold sheets beside her. And in that silence, she's not just missing someone, she's confronting the void left behind. The kind of void that doesn't come from just missing your presence, but from realizing that presence brought comfort, stability, and security, all things she never fully appreciated when they were right in front of her. It hits her not like a thought, but like a weight pressing on her chest, heavy, slow, suffocating. That void speaks louder than your laughter once did, louder than your voice calling her name. It echoes through her mind with the things you used to say, the little check-in messages that annoyed her because they felt too frequent, too clingy, too much. But now, in their absence, they feel like oxygen she took for granted. Her fingers hover over her phone, wanting to send something, anything, a message, a voice note, even just a single emoji, but pride stops her. Ego restrains her. And in that silence, she realizes she's caged herself in a prison of her own design, one where she can feel everything but can't say anything. And that absence, it doesn't comfort her. It mocks her. It reminds her of the times she pushed you away with sarcasm instead of vulnerability, with indifference instead of affection. And now, without you there, without your energy filling the room, she's left replaying everything, every eye roll, every ignored message, every emotional wall she built while you were trying to climb it. That absence is not just empty space. It's filled with all the chances she didn't take, all the love she didn't return, all the softness she withheld because she thought you'd always stay. She turns over, hugs the pillow like it might bring you back, but it doesn't. The bed stays cold, the room stays quiet, and your absence becomes louder than her heartbeat. It screams at her in a way presence never did, because your presence was calming, but your absence, it's deafening. And no matter how much she tries to silence her mind, no matter how much she tells herself she's fine, that she's independent, that she doesn't need anyone at 2 a.m., that mask falls. The truth stares her in the face. You're no longer there, and that absence, it's the most honest conversation she's had in weeks. You see, during the day, she wears armor. She distracts herself with tasks, scrolls through social media, laughs a little too loudly at jokes that aren't funny, and convinces everyone around her and maybe even herself that she's fine, that she's moved on, that your absence doesn't bother her. But at 2 a.m., that armor falls apart. It rusts under the weight of silence. There are no texts to reply to, no errands to run, no conversations to drown in, just her thoughts, and the reality she's been avoiding. That's when the questioning begins, not out loud, not dramatically, but internally like a slow, burning fire that she tries to ignore but can't escape. She replays everything, every conversation, every fight, every moment where you reached out and she pulled away. She begins to dissect her own actions, word by word, frame by frame, like an investigator of her own heartbreak. She wonders when exactly things began to shift, not when they broke, but when they bent so far that repair became impossible. She questions if the walls she put up were worth it, if silence gave her power or just pushed away someone who actually cared. She thinks about the times you asked if she was okay and she said, "I'm fine," when she really wanted to break down and let you hold her. She remembers the look in your eyes when you felt helpless, knowing something was wrong but being shut out over and over again. And now, in the middle of the night, with no one to prove anything to, she starts to ask herself questions she never wanted to face. Was she difficult, or was she just afraid? Did she sabotage something real because she didn't know how to receive love without testing it? Did she mistake your consistency for boredom, your loyalty for routine, your love for weakness? And most painfully, did she treat your presence as optional, believing you'd always be there until you weren't? Her mind doesn't rest at 2 a.m. It becomes a battlefield of memories and what-ifs. She scrolls back to old messages, revisiting the last things you said, reading your words as if they now carry secret meanings she was too blind to see at the time. She even imagines alternate timelines where she replied differently, where she called instead of stayed silent, where she let herself be vulnerable instead of distant. It becomes a spiral, a loop. And the deeper she goes, the more she realizes that some of her decisions were not strength, they were fear in disguise, fear of being hurt, fear of being seen, fear of being loved in a way she didn't feel she deserved. And now, without your steady voice to ground her, without your presence to anchor her storms, she starts to understand the cost of those fears, and the cost was you. What used to make her smile now leaves her hollow, and that hollowness isn't just emotional, it's physical. It crawls under her skin, settles in her chest, tightens her throat. The memories that once brought warmth now sting like open wounds. They visit uninvited and linger longer than they should. That playlist you made her, the one she used to fall asleep to with a soft smile, now plays like a soundtrack to her regret. Each lyric hits different. Each song now feels like a chapter from a book she can't finish reading because the ending was never supposed to look like this. She doesn't just remember moments. You've become part of her emotional DNA. The smell of your cologne in a crowded elevator, the random appearance of your name in a movie credit, even overhearing someone else being called the same pet name you once gave her. Every little detail has the power to pierce. At 2 a.m., her memory doesn't just play, it asterisk performs. Asterisk it builds scenes so vivid she can feel your breath again. She's back in that coffee shop, the one where you first told her you liked how she thought too deeply. She can see your smile, the exact way your eyes squinted just before you laughed. She can hear the tone of your voice when you reassured her after a fight. And she remembers, too clearly, how safe you made her feel just by being present. But the cruel thing about memories is that they don't fade all at once. They linger in flashes. They give you glimpses of what once was without allowing you to touch it. And the more she remembers, the more she realizes how emotionally attached she became to the asterisk details asterisk. The way you would text her good night, even if you were mad. The way your hand found hers under the table without saying a word. The way you never let her walk on the outside of the sidewalk. These weren't grand gestures. They were consistencies. They were habits formed through care, attention, and real affection. And now they're gone. They live in the past. But the past doesn't just stay where it belongs when it comes to someone who mattered. It resurfaces again and again, especially when the world is sleeping and there's no one around to distract her from what she's lost. The memories that once brought comfort now taunt her. They remind her of what was, what could have been, and what she let slip away. And as much as she tries to hate them, to delete them, to drown them out with noise or numbing or fake laughter, the truth is, those memories are all she has left of you. They haunt her not just because you're gone, but because when you were there, she didn't realize how much of her was becoming wrapped up in you. At 2 a.m., she can't unsee the way you used to look at her when she spoke about her dreams. She can't unhear the jokes only you two understood, and she can't undo the choices that led to this silence. Every memory, once a treasure, now becomes a weapon. It cuts, it bruises, and it humbles, because in those moments, she's no longer the one who left or stayed silent or acted indifferent. She's just a woman being haunted by the ghost of a man who gave her more than she knew how to receive. She begins to understand what she took for granted, but not in a way that feels like a simple realization. It's not like a sudden epiphany that lights up her mind. It's more like a slow, creeping ache that builds each night, especially when the clock hits those early morning hours and everything around her is still, except her racing thoughts. She doesn't just remember what you did, she begins to feel the full weight of it, like emotional muscle memory flooding her all at once. The way you consistently showed up for her, even when she was emotionally unavailable. The way you offered your presence without asking for anything in return. How you handled her moods, her distance, her unpredictability, with patience she now realizes most people don't have. You were the calm in her chaos, and in her need to protect herself, to maintain her illusion of control. She never thanked you for being her anchor. At 2 a.m., she replays the times you listened without judgment. The nights when she cried about things that didn't make sense even to her, and instead of offering solutions, you just held her and let her fall apart. The little things that once annoyed her, how you always double-checked if she ate, how you would remind her to wear a jacket, how you cared in ways that felt too much at the time. Now those are the very things she misses. It hits her that while she was looking for fireworks, you were giving her foundation. While she waited for grand gestures, you were building stability with consistency. She remembers how you supported her dreams even when they made no sense to you. How you were proud of her wins and stayed solid through her failures. You weren't perfect, but you were present. And now, in your absence, she's learning just how rare that kind of love really is. She thinks back to the times you tried to talk to her about how distant she was becoming, how you asked her if something was wrong, how you noticed the shift in her tone or energy, and how she brushed it off. She sees now that those were the moments you were trying to hold on. Those were the warning signs she ignored because she thought you'd always fight harder. But there comes a time when even the most patient heart gives up trying to be understood, and that's what she realizes now. You didn't leave because you stopped caring. You left because she stopped showing you that she did. She starts to understand the emotional labor you carried without complaint. You were the one who planned dates, initiated conversations, and tried to make her feel seen, even when she acted like she didn't need you to. She took it all for granted because it was steady, because it felt secure, because you made it look easy. But at 2 a.m., when she's lying in bed with only her thoughts and no more distractions to keep her numb, she sees the cost of that mindset. She realizes she was loved deeply, steadily, and perhaps too quietly for her to recognize it back then. And now, with you no longer around, that quiet love is deafening. It screams in every corner of her room. It fills every memory with the sting of missed gratitude. It lingers in the way she now compares everyone else to you, and finds them lacking. She starts to measure the space you left behind, not just in loneliness, but in emotional absence. Because no one holds her like you did. No one listens like you did. No one sees her like you did. And maybe no one ever will again. She imagines a world where you're with someone else, and that single thought unravels her in a way nothing else can. It starts as a flicker, just a passing image, a hypothetical scenario her mind whispers to her in the quietest, most vulnerable hour of the night. But once the door is opened, her imagination doesn't tiptoe, it runs wild. She envisions you smiling at another woman, not just out of politeness, but with that warmth and softness you used to reserve only for her. She sees you laughing, eyes squinting, head tilting back the way it always did when you genuinely found something funny. And in her mind, it's not a stranger you're laughing with, it's someone else holding the place she never thought would be filled by anyone but her. The jealousy that comes isn't just rooted in loss, it's in the knowing that you're capable of being good to someone, that your kindness wasn't a phase, that your patience wasn't temporary, that the way you made her feel special, seen, important, wasn't just tailored for her but a reflection of the kind of man you truly are. She realizes now that your goodness wasn't a performance, it was who you were. And now she imagines someone else experiencing it, benefiting from the emotional intelligence, the attentiveness, the protectiveness she used to receive. And in those painful, lonely moments, she starts to understand what it means to be replaced, not because you were disloyal, but because she stopped giving you reasons to stay. She starts crafting scenes in her head. She sees the new woman laughing at your jokes, sharing little inside moments with you, taking selfies in the same spots you once stood together. She pictures her getting to know the quirks that used to drive her crazy, the way you always had to sit at a certain angle at restaurants, the way you listened to podcasts during your morning routine, the way you hummed songs when you were nervous. These details are seared into her memory, and now the idea of someone else learning them, living them, loving them, it feels like a robbery, like someone is living a version of the life she was too careless to protect. And the worst part, she knows she can't even be mad, because deep down she understands you gave her chance after chance. You stayed when most men would have walked. You tried when many would have given up. You loved when you weren't sure if it was being returned. So if someone else is in your life now, making you feel appreciated, making you laugh without hesitation, showing you softness without resistance, then maybe you deserve that. Maybe you deserve the kind of love she couldn't give you at the time, and that's the part that truly breaks her, knowing that another woman might be treating you the way she should have. She wonders if you tell this new woman about your past, if you mention her name, if you ever compare the two in your mind. But she also fears that maybe you don't, that maybe you've moved on so cleanly, so completely, that the ghost of her no longer even lingers in your memory, that you've finally found peace she once disturbed. The idea that she has become irrelevant to the one person who once meant the world to her is almost unbearable, and so, at 2 a.m., her mind tortures her, with visions, with voices, with imagined realities that may or may not be true, but to her they feel real, because they're born from guilt, from longing, from the ache of watching someone she once had slip into the arms of someone who now holds her place. In those long, quiet hours, she doesn't just miss you. She mourns you. She mourns the version of you that belonged to her, and the version of herself that took you for granted. And as her mind spirals further into what-ifs and maybes, she realizes something she didn't see before. The thought of you with someone else doesn't hurt just because you're no longer hers. It hurts because now someone else gets to experience the very best of you without having to earn back your trust the way she wishes she could. And then comes the realization, the one she's been pushing away, the one that creeps in only when she's exhausted everything else in her mind. It arrives slowly, with the weight of quiet truth, and it doesn't ask for permission. It just settles in. She realizes she was loved right. Not just liked, not just tolerated, not just temporarily entertained, but genuinely loved, fully, and with a depth that she didn't know how to receive at the time. At 2 a.m., when the room is still and the only thing she hears is the echo of her thoughts, she finally understands the distinction. You weren't like the others. You didn't love her based on her body, her looks, or what she could give you. You loved her soul. You saw beyond her walls, her sarcasm, her emotional defenses, and you stayed. You tried. You gave. She recalls how you learned her triggers, not to use them against her, but to protect her from herself. How you recognized when she was withdrawing, and instead of punishing her with distance, you offered closeness. You were patient in the places where she was chaotic. You were gentle when she was sharp. You listened when she ranted, held space for her when she shut down, and celebrated her even when she couldn't see her own worth. That kind of love isn't loud, it isn't flashy, it doesn't make headlines. But in its absence, she sees that it was everything, and she didn't just overlook it, she underestimated its value. She thought love meant intensity, drama, passion at all costs. She thought arguments equaled investment, jealousy meant care, and games were a sign of interest. But now, at 2 a.m., when her heart is raw and her mind has run out of distractions, she sees how wrong she was. You gave her peace. Not the kind of peace that's boring, but the kind that creates safety, the kind that says, "You don't have to earn my love every day. You already have it." And that, she now understands, is the rarest form of love, because it's not based on performance, it's based on presence. You didn't fall in love with the version she presented to the world, you loved the version she hid from everyone else, even herself. And that's what stings the most. You loved the parts of her that she didn't even know needed healing. You saw beauty in her mess, and she didn't know how to believe you at the time. She remembers now how you checked in when she went quiet, how you celebrated her smallest wins, how you reminded her that softness wasn't weakness, and being vulnerable didn't make her a burden. You told her she didn't have to carry everything alone, and she thought you were just being nice. She thought it would fade. She thought eventually you'd grow tired like the rest, but you didn't, not until she gave you every reason to walk away, and even then you didn't leave in anger. You left in silence, and that silence is what haunts her the most, because now she knows you didn't walk away to teach her a lesson. You walked away to protect your own peace. You loved her deeply, but you finally chose to love yourself more. At 2 a.m., she wishes she could go back. Not to change the past, but to finally understand it, to see your efforts in real time, to appreciate your steadiness, to love you the way you were loving her all along. But hindsight is cruel, because it reveals truths too late. And now, with nothing left but memory and reflection, she realizes that while she's still searching for something real, she already had it, and lost it. Not because you stopped loving her, but because she couldn't see the kind of love that doesn't scream, doesn't chase, doesn't manipulate, but simply stays, until it's no longer welcome. That's the love she had. That's the love she let slip, and now it's the love she'll spend many nights trying to replace, knowing deep down she may never find it again. So now, as the clock ticks past 2 a.m. and the silence stretches long, she doesn't just miss you, she understands you. She understands what she had, what she lost, and why it hurts so deeply now. Because real love doesn't fade, it echoes. It leaves traces in the quietest hours, in the smallest moments, in the deepest corners of her soul. And while you've moved forward, not out of bitterness but out of necessity, she remains in that space between realization and regret, haunted not by your absence, but by everything she never said when you were still within reach.